As you get closer and closer to needing your money and wanting to live off your investments, it's no longer just about growing the wealth. At some point, it's got to be about protecting the wealth, protecting the money. Let me start by saying this. I'm not telling 25-year-olds to stop investing. I'm talking specifically to people who are close to needing their money and withdrawing their money sometime in the next 10, 15 years. Because there comes a point when you're about 10 years away from needing your money, when building a larger cash reserve becomes extremely important. And a lot of people don't talk about this. So I want to spend some time talking about it on this video. I want to explain to you why investing all of your money and not having a good old big old stash of cash is really a huge mistake. Okay, in other words, when you get older, you need to stack more cash. And here's why. Okay, let's just jump into it. Let me start with a simple question, okay? What is the whole goal of investing in stocks? The whole goal of investing in stocks is to buy at a lower price and hold or eventually sell that stock at a higher price. Right? When it all boils down to it, that's what we want to do. That's how you build wealth over time. Here's where a lot of people make a big mistake. If you're getting close to the point where you're going to be living off your investments and almost all of your money is tied up in the stock market, you've created a serious problem for yourself that a lot of people don't discover until it's too late. Okay? Here's the problem with that. Imagine that you're retired right now. I don't care what age you are. You could be 40 years old and retired, or you can be 65 years old and retired. But you're retired and you need $5,000 a month to pay your bills. Then the stock market drops 25% or 30%. What do? If you don't have enough cash, you don't really have a choice. You're forced to sell your stocks to get your $5,000 that you need every month, right? Just to buy groceries or pay mortgage or cover your everyday living expenses. And that's exactly what you want to avoid. You don't want to be forced to sell your stocks to get money, especially when the stocks are down, right? Now, imagine a different situation. Instead of having very little money in cash, let's say you've built up a healthy cash reserve. You know, you got $100,000 sitting in cash when you want to start taking your money out to live on. And the market then drops 25 or 30%, and you got all this cash laying over here. And now you got to go out and buy some groceries, right? Instead of selling your stocks or your investments at low prices when the market's down, all you got to do is simply withdraw money from your cash. And then your investments in the stock market, they stay invested while everything's down. And what happens is you give these stocks time to recover. You don't have to go sell your stocks when they're down to get some money to pay your bills. That's when you dig into your cash reserves, right? Because you got this big old buffer of cash sitting around here that you can pull from when stocks are down, and you can live off that money. Then, watch this. Eventually, when the stock market recovers and goes back up and your portfolio is back up, that's when you begin selling those shares when they're high to replenish your cash and to cover your expenses, your food, your rent, your mortgage, whatever it can be. In other words, let me put it like this. Your cash gives you options. So you want to stay in control. That's the whole point of freedom when you're retired, is so that you can have some control. And you have control because you got a stash of cash that you can pull from when the stock market goes down, and you don't want to be selling your stocks low to get money to pay for your expenses. It keeps the stock market, when you have a big stash of cash, what happens is it keeps the stock market from deciding when you have to sell your stocks. And that's the whole idea of having a big stash of cash, right? Some people would call this the 2-bucket strategy in terms of retirement. And that's because you have one bucket, bucket number one, that has your investments in it, your stock portfolio, right? That's where you have your long-term growth in terms of your money, right? Then you got this second bucket over here, bucket number 2, that is your cash reserves. 2-bucket strategy. The cash is your spending bucket when the stock market goes down, right? And when the stock market's doing well, you can simply sell your appreciated stocks that have gone up in value while they're high to refill your cash bucket and to pay your monthly bills. When the market's struggling, that's when you grab money from your cash. Because remember, the whole goal of the stock market is to buy low and sell high. And this is where a lot of people get this thing wrong, because a lot of people, they buy their stocks high and then they panic when things go crazy and they sell low. Or they buy the stocks high and then when the market goes down, they're forced to pull money from their stocks because they ain't got no cash. And that's why you gotta have some cash, so your cash is the bridge that helps carry you through the stock market, the downturns in the stock market. So you don't have to be out here making a bunch of withdrawals at the worst possible time. Now, let me be clear again. I want to be clear about this. I'm not saying you should stop investing. I'm just saying that there comes a point, typically within about 10 years of you needing the money from your investments, when you need to stop investing every single extra dollar that you have. Instead, you got to begin building a large cash reserve. Now look, if you watch this channel, you know that you should already have a fully funded emergency fund, always. Ideally, what'll happen is you have a fully funded emergency fund and all you'll be doing is adding to that emergency fund, that emergency safety net called cash, as you get closer to the point in your life when you're going to start living off your investments. Now look, for some of you, that may be 35 or 40 years old. And for some others of you, it may be 65 or 70 years old. Who knows? We're all different. Personal finance is personal. The deal is this: as you get closer to living off your investments, your goals are going to change with your money. And so you need to adjust your financial strategy along the way. As you get closer and closer to needing your money and wanting to live off your investments, it's no longer just about growing the wealth. At some point, it's got to be about protecting the wealth, protecting the money, right? And the way you do that, one of the smartest ways to do that, is simply make sure you have enough cash to let your investments recover when the stock market inevitably goes through one of its downturns. Now remember this, the stock market typically goes through downturns much faster than it goes through upswings. So the stock market is going to be up a lot more than it's down over the long term. Listen, I hope all this makes sense. I just wanted to bring this information to you because I think sometimes we don't talk about this, and we hear a lot of times on the internet, social media, oh, cash is dead or cash is trash. Cash is really, really important, especially the closer you get to wanting to use your money to live on. It's a simple strategy, 2-bucket strategy, but it can make a huge difference. Hey, if you got value from this video and this made you think a little differently, do me a favor and drop a comment below and let me know. Also, smash that like button for me and share this video with someone in your circle of good people, okay? Remember, the best person who's going to take care of that old you is the young you. Until the next video, peace.